Okay, good evening, everyone. It is a privilege to be here. Winter is upon us, and we feel it when we come out. And as I'm leaving the house in Muncie, and the wind is blowing, I'm thinking, who's going to come out? It's so Erev winter. And yet here you are. So thank you all for coming out. I appreciate it. And I don't think you'll be disappointed. What we're going to speak about tonight is something that I don't remember having ever gone to a talk that discussed this topic before. And it's a topic whose time has come. I noticed that on the flyer, it did not say what I'm speaking about, so therefore it could have just been anything. But I think this is a topic that you're going to find interesting. And whether it applies directly to you or it applies to somebody that you know, this topic, I think, will resonate and you'll be able to use it in the future. Now, we're living in interesting and, in some ways, revolutionary times within Judaism. And I say that as a makarev. I do Kiruv. I fly out to different campuses. I was in Las Vegas last week. I'm going to Orlando tomorrow. There's 6,000 Yidden in the Orlando campus. I then go to Dallas. There's tens of thousands of Yidden there. And we're living in a day and age where people are coming back to Judaism. And that's new. That did not happen in the past. Within the history of Judaism, when people left, they left for good. And instead, we have a movement now that's bringing people back, and that's very exciting. But because of this movement, because it's such an exciting movement, it is subject to analysis. People look at the movement, and like any legitimate movement, they have all sorts of questions. Questions like, is it worth it? Is it worth the money? Is it effective? Are people becoming from? Are people becoming from then going back off the derech? And all of these questions that really 50 years ago no one was asking because the movement didn't exist. Today we're all wise and we're stroking our chins and we're saying, wow, let's analyze this movement and see what the movement is all about and how effective it is. And to bring matters to the fore, recently in the Mishpacha magazine, there was an article that pronounced or announced, is Kiruv dead, or has the door closed on Kiruv? Meaning somebody, the author of the article, the writer, the columnist, wrote, based on my analysis, it's a legitimate question, is it time to say goodbye to Kiruv? Now, that's astonishing when you think about the fact that Kiruv is actually a new movement. It's not a movement that has been around for 1,000 years and it's sort of reached its apex and now is disappearing. It's a new movement. As a matter of fact, Kiruv on campus, which is one of the largest segments of Kiruv today, college campuses that have about 500,000 college students, is brand new. It's brand new. The very first campus outside, I'm not speaking about Chabad, Eish HaTorah, Or Sameach. The very first campus, thank you, the very first campus began, anyone know how many years ago it began? How old is Campus Kiruv? Perhaps the most vibrant segment of Kiruv is approximately 15 years old. That's the whole thing. The whole Campus Kiruv movement is 15 years old. It started with one couple. And you know why I know that? Because I was the first one, my wife and I. We were the very first couple on a college campus in the United States. That's why my position today is I'm one of the national directors for outreach, because historically speaking, I always tell my wife, when we stand back 40, 50 years from now, you're going to realize it was a pretty big deal many years ago. there was not a single couple living on campus outside of Chabad. Kiruv, where people are sending people to yeshiva, a neve, a Shaarey, a jewel, an iyat, a Mechon Shlomo, Mechon Yaakov, or Samech, a Shatorah Center program, Chappelle's, Majash Rachel. All of these places, there was not a single representative. We were the first ones. And to be very frank with you, I didn't know what I was doing when I went down there because no one had done it before. We were hired by an organization. So, and I'm not so old myself. So if we were the first, the movement is pretty new. Now, Baruch Hashem, today it's exploded, and there are at least 50 campuses that have full-time makarvim and multiple makarvim. There are at least 150 campuses that have part-time people working on them, and that's not including Chabad that have their own 200 campuses. So I don't think it's time to close the door on Kiruv. Having said all that, what makes the question legitimate? Is Kiruv dead? Or is it time to close the door on Kiruv? Well, after that article came out, this past week, there was a rebuttal. And 4 people that were involved in Kiruv each wrote in articles, including the great Rabbi Avraham Edelstein, who took the numbers. He's the founder of Ner LaElef, a very important organization in Eretz Israel, and he is a numbers guru. So you can say, oh, maybe Kiruv is dead, and he will take out his machine gun and shoot out the numbers. X amount of people are going to have joined our Samech this year. X amount, they've added a new dorm to this, they've added a new program to that, and he sort of knows what he's not going from his gut, he's going from facts on the ground. And it becomes an issue. He said, she said, the rebuttal, and it's a conversation. But even more so, there was an article that came out in a blog about a month ago. And the article basically said, you know, there are people who become frum, they're part of the Kiruv process, and then after a year or 2 or 5 or 10, they leave. And they become not frum all over again. And this person who was writing this blog went about explaining why is it that people who are so enamored with Yiddishkeit, they're so excited that they sign up for it, and they cover their heads, and they put on tefillin, and they keep Shabbos. What happens that they lose their romance with Judaism and their romance with Torah Judaism, and then they leave a few years later? And he went about to explain, oh, they thought it was going to be this, and then it turned out to be that. And, you know, he had his thesis, he had his theory. And that article, that blog, was passed around to the Makarvim, and it ended up in my inbox as well. And I was less impressed by that article. And the reason that I was less impressed is that there are reasons that people choose Yiddishkeit. And there are reasons that Kiruv is effective, will continue to be effective, and as long as we are there to reach out, it will speak to the masses. And that is my topic for the night. My topic, or the title of this talk would be, why Baalei Tshuva choose Judaism. Now, really, I could have called this the 5 reasons why people choose religion, because the same 5 reasons that a Baal Tshuva chooses Judaism, anyone who is on a search for a religion looks at these 5 things. It just so happens to be that Judaism comes out in general smelling like roses at the end of this talk and at the end of this research. But when we have clarity in why people are choosing Judaism, so then we'll understand that no one was tricked, There was not a bait and switch. This is not a car salesmanship. This is not a used car lot. We are not circus, what is it called, ringleaders in a circus, trying to be the Pied Pipers and get everyone excited. There are legitimate and important and vital and real reasons why to choose Judaism over anything else. And it's the same reasons why anyone would choose religion in general. And at the end of the day, Judaism, I would say to you, my audience, Judaism wins out. Now, you can have plenty of people who don't choose Judaism. And maybe intellectually, they don't understand how to break down these 5 reasons. Or maybe they are duped. Maybe their view is skewed, which is something that I'm going to address tonight. But there are 5 reasons. It's not one reason, like the article was trying to say. It's one basic reason. It's 5 distinct reasons. And even if we become less enamored with one of the reasons, the other reasons still are valid. Okay, are we into this? Okay, this is a groundbreaking talk. It's a critical talk, and hopefully, I understand not just my beautiful listening audience is going to digest these concepts, but this goes on Torah anytime. And there are so many Baalei Tshuva in the world today. In America, they say, and if this number is accurate or even close to being accurate, it's an astounding number, that 1 out of every 2 Jewish people today are either Baalei Tshuva, children of Baalei Tshuva, or grandchildren of Baalei Tshuva. And stop and think about yourselves and you'll see it's not that far from the truth. Either you or your child or grandchild. So that means the Kiruv movement, the Baal Tshuva movement, is very effective. And I'll tell you something else. You're sitting here in Kew Gardens in Queens. If you go to any out-of-town city, you go to Dallas, you go to Kansas, you go to Los Angeles, and the percentage of Baalei Tshuva is much higher than it is in town. In town, it is true. If you go to Borough Park and Flatbush, perhaps you'll have less. The numbers will be a little bit less. But you go to any of the out-of-town places, the numbers are very, very high. And I know that. I grew up in Cleveland. I lived in New Jersey, and I lived in Los Angeles. Some of the great shuls in Los Angeles, the majority of the Balabatim were Baalei Tshuva. And they're B'nai Torah today. So, here we go. The 5 reasons that people choose any religion, and we have to see where Judaism stacks up. Now, I'm going to be the first to tell you that at the end of the day, if we look critically, not just at all religions, but at Judaism, we still have work to do. And I say that at the outset. You know how I know we have work to do? Because Mashiach's not here. And if we did it right, Mashiach would be here, and that would be the end of the game. That would be the end of days. But as a compelling reason to choose, let's go through the 5 reasons. And I'm going to try to pick from the least reasons to the greater reasons. So we'll start with the least reason, but even this is not a small reason. Reason number 1. People choose a religion based on the heroes of the religion. Meaning the following. When somebody's put on a pedestal, when someone is raised up, he or she is essentially the epitome of what that religion can become if you do it right. That's the role model. That's who we model ourselves and our children after. So when we look at the hero of a religion, we have to see, what do those heroes represent? And people choose a religion based on those figures, those characters that represent the epitome of that religion. Now, let's break this down. Okay, I'm not going to do the 5, I'm going to break each one down, so we'll do it slowly and then we will review them. Okay? Let's start with our favorite religion now, Islam. Islam, the hero of Islam. So I'm not here to be politically correct. I'm sorry about that. I'm just going to tell you the way things are, okay? The hero of Islam was a man named Muhammad. He is the one, he is who they call the prophet. Every time they say his name, they say, may he be a blessing, may be a rest, and may be a blessing, his name should be blessed. That's what they say about Muhammad. Our esteemed president insists on saying that Muhammad was a man of peace who preached peace. Historians tell us a very different story. Historians speak of a man named Muhammad who is a petty, devious, conniving murderer. And I use the word murderer with a special dagesh, with a special emphasis on murderer, because that is who he was. Let's go through a little bit of history. Muhammad started off as an ignorant, illiterate person who had claimed to have a revelation from an angel named Gabriel in a cave. And through that revelation, he brought down the religion of Islam, complete with Allah, complete with the writings of the Quran and the extra books that went along with it. And in the beginning, he thought that Jewish people would subscribe. He actually thought Jews would convert to Islam. Now, why would he think that? Well, it's sort of simple. At that time, Christianity that we're going to get to was exceedingly bloodthirsty. And historically speaking, about 20 times more people have been killed in the name of Christianity as have been killed in the name of Islam. Historically speaking, Christianity has always been more bloodthirsty than Islam. Only recently, Islam has become so radicalized that we're looking at Islam like that. And yet, he felt that the Jews were being persecuted by Christianity so badly that if somebody, a voice of reason, somebody like himself would come and embrace the Jews, he would say, come, join us, we love you, we care about you, we'll take care of you. Then the Jews would be quick to convert to Islam. Little did he understand Jews. We're not converting to anyone. And after a while, he got very frustrated. And he went from being nice to Jews. His scribe was a Jew. He married a Jew. One of his wives, he had many concubines, but one of his wives were Jewish. His daughter was Jewish. And his scribe was Jewish, actually came from Malchus Beis David. But after a while, he was upset. Why are these stubborn Jews converting? And he began to kill them. And the stories of his killing are legion. They are well known. For instance, he went to one certain tribe, Kabani, one Jewish tribe, and he went and he beheaded 900 people. This is not his followers. This is not his disciples. This is not generations later people who could have skewed his words. This was him. He did it. He, Muhammad, beheaded 900 Yidden, and that was only one instance. He was a known bloodthirsty murderer. And therefore, the man, the hero, and there were many like him, many afterwards like him, all the way until today, when Osama bin Laden, again, a hero on a pedestal, ISIS, no one speaks out, heroes on pedestals. Saddam Hussein, hero, pedestal. Many, many before, many since. When you look at that religion, all you need to do is look at their heroes. And when you look at their heroes, you say, if that's the best that you got, that's what we're looking up to, I must look elsewhere. Interestingly enough, there was just recently a Palestinian who joined ISIS, and he was so disenchanted by what he saw in the heroes of ISIS that he came back to the Palestinians. Hamas, he felt, was more humane than ISIS. Okay? So that's the heroes. What about Christianity? Well, let us not even begin with the heroes, the saints, the popes, who put out edicts, decrees, the cardinals in their crusades, in their inquisitions. Those priests on Easter who would get up and call for a slaughter of the Jewish townspeople. Let us not even begin with the founder of Protestantism, Martin Luther, another bloodthirsty monster. The Protestants, who are supposed to be more kind than the Catholics. Martin Luther, the Great Reformation. Martin Luther was a wicked Jew hater. His philosophy was the precursor of Nazi Germany. As a matter of fact, in the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C., when you go to the Holocaust Museum, the exhibition starts with a movie, and it traces Hitler's philosophy back to Martin Luther and Christianity. The idea of Jews as vermin, Jews as spiders, Jews as devils with horns. This is all Christianity. Lucifer, Satan, Jew with the big nose. That's what they're heroes. This is not the rednecks. This is not the street urchins. Were the heroes. These are the people, many of them, that are saints in the church. Even people who were supposedly friendly to the Jewish people, like Pope John Paul. You know what he did? Pope John Paul, who was the great friend of the Jews, one of the most charismatic popes in recent memory. You know what he did? He went to Germany and he laid a wreath of flowers by a soldier of the SS to show him respect. Nazi Germany, the Pope. How many popes perpetrated the lie that the Jewish people killed Jesus, killed Yashka? How many of them perpetrated? Most of them did. It wasn't until the 1960s that a pope got up and said, well, actually, they didn't really do it. 1960s is 2,000 years of lies by the heroes of Christianity. So when you look at the heroes, you're lost. These are the heroes. And by the way, I'm not going to be covering a lot of Far Eastern religions, but if we did, we would find that many of them seem kinder and gentler, but the truth of the matter is, they were not much better. The hero of Buddhism, he left his wife and he left his family and he left his kingdom, left his parents. He went wandering around until he got enlightenment. And then when he came back, he ignored his family the rest of his life. Hindu, the founder of Hindu, was an obnoxious child who used to throw dishes at his mother. Because when something would go wrong, he would act out. He would blame it on the thing itself. He would say each object has its own power. So if I bump into a chair, then the chair has power. I must destroy the chair. You imagine that? The founder of Hinduism. Those are the heroes. You leave your family and you destroy dishes. You remember what the Gemara says. Somebody who destroys a dish in anger, it's as if they worshipped Avodah Zarah. And yet the founder of Hinduism. Okay, let's go to Judaism. Who are the heroes in Judaism? Well, I think when it comes to heroes, we really come away smelling pretty good. Now, sometimes in history, we look up to them and then they disappoint us. But when they do disappoint us, we pull away. We absolve ourselves from them. We say, we guess we made a mistake. They are not a hero. We don't continue to promote them. You know who our heroes are? Our heroes were a Moshe Feinstein. That's a hero. And you know why he's a hero? Not because he learned Shas 400 times. You know why he was a hero? Because of how he treated his wife. Because of how he treated his students. You know a story that I tell my children? Famous story with their Moshe? It's a heroic story. He was picked up by one of his students. One of his students came to pick him up. And each day, another student would pick him up, and it was an honor to pick up the great Rav Moshe. And one student, he was new to the yeshiva, he came to pick him up, and he was so excited. And Rav Moshe sat down in a seat and in the car, and he was going to drive Rav Moshe 10 blocks to the yeshiva. And he was so excited, he slammed the door without realizing he had slammed it on all of Rav Moshe's fingers. So Rav Moshe's fingers are sticking out the door. But Rav Moshe knew that if he would yell and scream, how embarrassed would this yeshiva student be? Wow, I just slammed Rav Moshe's fingers. So Rav Moshe did not utter a peep. He did not scream. He did not show any pain at all. And the student is happily asking questions about Gemara and is asking questions about halacha. And Rav Moshe, with his fingers wiggling out the door, is just answering his questions. And the only reason that we even know this story, that Bacher never would have found out. But Rav Moshe, after he left the car and he went into his office and closed the door, did he allow himself the luxury of a scream. And somebody heard it, and they came in, and they saw Rav Moshe's mangled fingers. That's who our heroes are. Our heroes are people who act with dignity and honor and grace and kindness. It's that same Rav Moshe who is the only one to find out when he would go to a banquet the phone number of the cook so that he can call up that cook the next day and say, hi, this is Moshe Feinstein. I just want to tell you, you made a delicious meal and I enjoyed it. Did it ever occur to a president? Did it ever occur to some bigwig, some dictator, Kim Jong-il? You think he's going to call, oh, thank you very much for the dumplings? No, but if you didn't like him, he'd shoot the guy. Our leaders, kind, benevolent, graceful, always thinking. It's a Chafetz Chaim who would cry for weeks in order to daven to Hashem that somebody should have a baby or that someone should feel better. It was Rav Moshe didn't want to take a penny. Or the Chafetz Chaim who lived on a bench. And if we go all the way back, one tzaddik after the next, one gadol after the next, showed us character, that character counts. Our leaders were people that we could look up to and emulate how they acted. That's greatness. So, number one, when you look at the heroes, not bloodthirsty, not conniving, not egotistical, but people of gentle kindness and amazing, amazing grace. That is who Judaism looks up to. That's who we emulate. So that's number one. So if somebody says, I choose Judaism because I saw the rabbis, I saw the Gedolim, I took a look at Rabbi Shmuel Kamenetsky, I saw Rabbi Ovadia Yosef, I saw Rabbi Eliashiv, and I was transformed, I was changed, I can appreciate that. And the media somehow in their twisted way of thinking likes to take the big tzaddik and clump them together with a mullah. Clump them together because they all have beards. So some madman from Hamas has a beard, and Lahavdil, one of our great tzaddikim, do. So look, they look the same. No. You know, when you break into these mullahs' houses, when you break into these dictator houses, you know what you find? Paintings and pornography. You break into Rabbi Elyashiv's house, you know what you find? Gemaras and Shulchan Aruch and sparse furniture and simpleness. Those are our heroes. Greatness, beauty, elegance. Number 2, you know why people choose a religion? Because they ask a religion the following: what is your dream for this world? If you have it your way, what is the utopian vision of your religion? What's the world supposed to look like? Simple question. According to you, what's the world supposed to look like? That's reason number 2. What's the vision? What's the dream? What's the goal? What do you punch into your GPS? Well, let's go back to Islam. What's the great vision? Well, a lot of the great vision is the next world, where you could take advantage of 72 virgins. Now, I don't even want to go into the moral and ethical dilemmas of taking advantage, or what happens after 72 times. Do you get another 72? These are questions for greater people than myself. But why is that okay? What is that great vision? Well, do you know what the great vision in the end of days? They have a messianic vision as well. You know what the messianic vision is? In their messianic vision, Yashka, Jesus, comes down. He breaks all the crosses. This is Islam's version. Breaks all the crosses, kills all the Jews, and converts to Islam. That is, yes, that is the messianic vision of the future. And by the way, it's so astounding that before I came here, I had to Google it because I wanted to get it right. That is the vision. Make the world a better place? No. Sharia law? So then what? What's the vision? What's the dream? The dream is murder, mayhem, coercion, and yay, we won. Yay, we won. Everyone converted. We're the winners. Well, that's not much of a vision. That's what they're trying to do now. By force. Convert or die. In case any of you have not seen the news in the past 2 hours, just now, in the wonderful city of Baghdad, there was a car bomb and 80 people were blown to smithereens. It's not going to make the news. A little baby last week gets plowed by a madman, Palestinian, and all of Klal Yisrael is mourning. But 80 people get blown to smithereens. No one's going to mourn them. You know why? Because the vision is, let's destroy the good with the bad, let God sort them out. And by the way, that's what Christians believe as well. The Crusades killed as many Christians as they did Muslims, as they did Jews. They used to say, let God will know who his chosen ones are. We can kill them. And the great vision, what's the great vision? Well, there's something called the rapture. And the rapture is most of the world will burn in hellfire and damnation. And those chosen few who believe, they will float up to their paradise. That's the vision. No saving, no peace, let everyone burn. Let all sinners just be eradicated, and we won. We're the winners. We are the champions. That's the vision. So if you're looking for a vision, you're looking for a selfish vision. That's what it is. Buddhism, don't even ask. Buddhism, people look at them like pacifists, like they don't care. Buddhism likes to say that they're misunderstood. But the truth is, if you look at Buddhist writings, pain doesn't affect them. Like other people's pain doesn't affect them. It's troubling. It's actually quite troubling. They have a philosophy why it shouldn't trouble them. We're a part of a whole, and each person has to grow on their own. But where's Rahmanas? Where's mercy? Absent. What's the Jewish vision? What's the Jewish utopia? You know what it is? That's what it says in Tanakh. One day, lo yisa goy el goy cherev. A nation will not raise a sword against another nation. V'lo yilmadu od milchama. And there will be no war no more. They will not teach war. The lion will lie down with the lamb. They will beat their swords into plowshares. There will be love and peace in this world. And that's our aim, that's our goal, that's our vision, that's our utopia. We have the vision for mankind. And by the way, the United Nations that hates Jews, when they want to put a saying on the wall, on their walls outside of the United Nations, they didn't choose a Buddhist saying or a Hindu saying. What do they choose? A nation will not rise up against another nation. They used the Jewish saying. They used from Tanakh, because our vision of utopia is the one vision that hopes for a healing of the world. And by the way, we teach this to our children. This is not just, wow, that would be great. Just look in this week's Parsha. It's astounding how we are out there looking after the world. Think of it. Avraham Avinu is speaking to Hashem. He just has a bris milah. And three Arabs come walking by. They're not Arabs. They're like they're Balei Avodah Zarah. Three strangers. And he says to Hashem, do you mind holding on a moment? I want to tend to these three. You know, in life, there are certain people you don't put on hold. You're speaking to your boss on the phone. You don't put your boss on hold. You'll let the other person pass, right? I don't put my wife on hold. Here's Avram putting God on hold. God, I know we're speaking, but you mind putting you on hold? You got three guests. And it's not like there were three Gedolei Adar. Because what does Avram say? Come, rachatzu raglechem. Come wash your feet. And Rashi says, why do you have to wash your feet? Because of Avodah Zarah. So he suspected that they were idol worshippers. And yet, he put Hashem on hold to show kindness to the world. That's why he's the forefather of Yidden. That's why he's the forefather of many nations. Because the vision of making the world a kinder place was squarely in Avram. And by the way, Avram didn't just wash their feet. He said, I'll give you a little something, a little bread, a little water. What did he do? He slays 3 cattle to give each one tongue, their own tongue. If you ever see a tongue, did you ever see the tongue of a cow? It's a big piece of meat. You can't eat a whole tongue, I don't think. A tongue is a huge piece of meat. So honestly, right? We got a chef over here. There's no reason to shech 3 bakar to get the tongue of each, right? That one tongue is sufficient for 3 people, wouldn't you say? It's a huge piece of meat. And yet, Avram wanted to give them the best part of the tongue. So he had to kill 3 bakar to give to these 3 Balei Avodah Zarah while God is still on hold. And then when Hashem comes back to him, Hashem says, by the way, there is this land over there. It's so wicked that in history it will be synonymous with wickedness. It's called Sodom. 4,000 years later, we're still speaking about to sodomite, the most awful things a person can do is named after the city. And by the way, Avram, I just want to let you know I'm destroying it. And here goes Avram going to bat for them. Maybe there's 50, maybe there's 45, maybe there's 40. You know why? Because the vision, the utopian vision, is that we care about each other, and we go to bat for each other, and we're there for each other. Who teaches that but us? So you know why Abal Tshuva chooses Judaism? Because our vision for this world is unique. And while it's true that Christianity has borrowed elements of that vision, but they really don't. They really don't. You know, right now, there is a bloodthirsty group, perhaps part of Al-Qaeda, called Boko Haram. Boko Haram. Did you ever hear Boko Haram? It's a horrific group. They went to Nigeria and they kidnapped 200 young girls. And they took these girls And they converted them to Islam. They're Christian girls. They converted them to Islam, and they sold them they married them off. They sold them to people who took them as concubines, as forced wives. Where is the outcry from the Christian community? 200 Christians. Where are the priests standing up saying, these are our brothers and sisters? You don't see it, because a lot of it is just pledging allegiance by rote. It's lip service. It's not real. By us, it's real. It's real. When we cried for those 3 boys who were kidnapped, we cried tears, wet tears. We davened. We were makabel things. We genuinely care. We care that there's pain in the world. We live with that. That is why during the Pesach Seder we say Dam Tzvardei Kinim, and we take out little drops of the wine to say, yes, even though Mitzrayim were wicked people, they even put babies in the wall. They put babies on the wall with cement. And yet, they're suffering. So we take out a little bit of wine. Wine is always rejoicing. We take out a little bit of the wine. Dam, tzvardea, are rejoicing. Even when we see iniquity punished, it still bothers us because there's human suffering. And then we learn Ma'aseh Yadai Tavu Bayam, V'atem Omrim Shira. The angels wanted to sing when the Egyptians were drowning, and every child knows Hashem stopped the angels. Humanity is suffering. This is what we teach our children. Who else teaches that stuff? And on Yom Kippur, when we're davening for our lives, what do we read? Yonah. That Yonah was somebody who ran away from trying to save a city of Nineveh of wicked people. And instead of applauding wickedness, instead of saying, wow, let these wicked people die, Yonah, make them better. They're human beings. Didn't I make them just like I made the Kikayon? The vision, the utopian vision, is alive and well. We teach it. We teach it. We live it. Okay. Number 3. What's the third reason about tshuva chooses Judaism? The third reason is because Judaism is committed to truth. Now, a commitment to truth is really important when it comes to choosing religion. Now, in the olden days, perhaps, I don't know if this is so true, but they used to say that Baal Tshuva was a philosopher, and he would go and proofs, and Eish HaTorah would have discovery seminars and show it's true. Today, the truth is most people are much more emotional, and they choose for emotional reasons. But at some point in the process, it's got to be so. It's got to be true. It can't be made up. That's why in Judaism, there is no such thing as a mystery. What does that mean? In Christianity, there are certain questions that must not be asked. The church calls them mystery questions. Did you know about this? Mystery questions. You know about that, right? Mystery questions. You can't ask. They are mysteries. We don't have mysteries. We try to tackle each question philosophically. We may have the answer. We may not be satisfied with the answer. We probably have 10 answers, to be honest. Lots of answers. But we tackle the tough questions because we try to get truth. We try to look for truth. Well, look at the religions out there. How many are committed to truth? So Christianity, there's really nothing to talk about. I mean, there's zero commitment to truth. I mean, of all the religions that have spread out there, Jesus may have never lived. That's number one. You know, it has to be understood. There's no archaeological evidence to him, and even the Gemara speaks about somebody that was much, much later. Even if he existed, the facts about his life certainly were not true. They were written down many years later. They appeared as a vision to Paul on the road to Damascus. Christmas is not when he was born for sure. Every historian will tell you that even if he lived, it was certainly not Christmas. That's a made-up date. It was to coincide with a holiday called Saturnalia. That was a Roman holiday. And in order to change the Roman pagans, to get them to be Christian, so they made Saturnalia Christmas at the same time, because and yet the Pope and everyone on down at midnight on Christmas go very solemnly into the church and they sing Silent Night. See, why do I know that? That's the problem. I live in America. No. So it didn't happen. It simply didn't. And I'll tell you something even more afterwards. I'll tell you something even more. The whole concept of Jesus being the Son of God was invented afterwards to make the Romans feel better. Do you know this? Little history here. It's going to make you laugh. There was a man, and he was a Roman emperor. His name was Constantine. And Constantine wanted to solidify his kingship in Rome. So what did he do? So he was approached by Christians, and the Christians said, if you convert Rome to Christianity, then anyone who doesn't buy in, that's a perfect excuse to kill them. So Constantine said, tell me more. What is Christianity all about? They said, well, Christianity, the head of Christianity was a rabbi. His name was Jesus. He was the rabbi. Well, great, tell me about him. Well, he was a great orator. He gave the Sermon on the Mount. He spoke very eloquently. And Constantine interrupted them in the middle and said, pardon me, but this is Rome. They're not going to worship a rabbi who's a good orator, no matter what kind of a good drasha he gives on Shabbos Shuvah. They are not going to go worship him. You know who Rome worships? Rome takes after Greece. They worship gods and heroes. Gods and heroes, that was Rome, that was pagan Rome. If Jesus were a god/hero, then perhaps, well, what's a hero? What's a Greek hero? Well, it's simple. A Greek hero is somebody whose father is a god, whose mother is a mortal. Father god, like Hercules, right? Hercules is a great example. Father was Zeus, mother mortal. You're a hero. That means you're flesh and blood. You look like everyone else, but you're the child of a god. And therefore, in order to make this myth palatable to the Roman populace, Jesus had to be Father God, Mother mortal, and that's the story. That's how he became known as the Son of God, in order to appease Rome. Commitment to truth? Are you kidding me? Buddhism, commitment to truth? Everything that we know about enlightenment happened to the founder as he sat underneath the tree for 7 days and he achieved enlightenment. Says who? Says him. Sadahar, the prince. I had enlightenment. Did you? What does that mean? Well, watch, I have wisdom. Well, wisdom can be achieved without enlightenment. There have been many wise people in this world. Commitment to truth. Judaism has a commitment to truth. And even when there are difficulties, and that's why the Gemara, there's a teku, we're able to say, I don't know. We're able to say it. We could say, Rashi many times says, I don't know. I don't know. Eini yodea. I don't know. Rabbi Akiva Eger points out every time that Rashi says, I don't know. Because that's part of truth, is saying, I don't know. When I don't know. But the commitment to truth, it's Judaism. That's why in Judaism, we would never have this concept of taking a man like Galileo Galilei. What did he do? He was a scientist, and he said that the earth is not the center of the universe. Actually, the earth revolves around the sun. Comes the church, and they say, what does that mean? What you're really saying is the sun is more important than earth, because of whatever is in the middle is the most important. So we say earth is in the middle and everything evolves around the earth. That's why the sun rises, sun sets, because earth and mankind and humanity is the most important. But according to you, Galileo Galilei, You're saying that the earth goes around the sun. That means the earth is less important. We can't have you saying that. So you know what they did to Galileo? They put him in prison, house arrest, the rest of his life. He was not allowed to leave. No commitment to truth. And that's why you could teach your kid about Santa Claus, and you could tell a lie to your child together with the tooth fairy and the Easter bunny, and a lie is a lie. Because who cares when you tell your kids lies? We don't have that. We don't have examples of telling our kids lies that we will have to be choser, that we will have to backtrack on. You know why? Because the Masorah works if we transmit truth. Number four. We're going to go a little bit quickly through the last two. Why do people choose Judaism or any religion? They look and they see, does it work? Does it actually work? Now, let me explain to you what I mean. Communism on paper really looks groovy. It looks great. Everyone is equal. Nobody's richer, nobody's poorer, nobody's suffering, nobody's starving. The only thing that it forgets to take into account is human nature. That's where it messed up, and that is the story of the Animal Farm. Of course, it's animal nature, but that's human nature. Greed and the desire for power. So it's a great theory, but practically speaking, it doesn't work. So when we look, and we call that, by the way, that's called the proof is in the pudding. Proof is in the pudding means, it's an old saying, and it means the following. If I tell you, oh, I make the best pudding, you taste my pudding, you'll never go back. It's so great, it's smooth, it's creamy. Finally, you want to just chop me up, so you say, you know what, let me taste the pudding. The proof will be in the pudding. If it tastes good, it's good. If it doesn't taste good, it's not good. Stop telling me how good it is. Let me taste it. The proof is in the pudding. So too, stop telling me how peaceful Islam is. Peaceful. The proof is in the pudding. If 95% of all wars in this world involve Islam, then it's not a religion of peace. That's all there is to it. And even if you say again and again, it's peaceful, that doesn't make it so. The proof is in the pudding. So too, when we look at what religion is supposed to give us, good marriages, the ability to control ourselves from things like substance abuse, the ability to respect our spouses. When we look around and we look at society in general, Judaism once again comes up smelling more like roses than anything that's out there. And yes, I did the research before I came here, although I've done it many times, but I wanted to be current before I spoke to you tonight. And the hour is late because I could spout out statistics. For example, if I may, 65% of all women in Saudi Arabia have been abused or molested. 65%. In Afghanistan, the number is 80%. Now, you could say peaceful and leave wars and jihad out of it. How do you treat each other? How do you treat, and by the way, one nation after the next, the lowest number in all the Arabic countries, the lowest number of women, the lowest percentage is 45%. A mere half of the women, only half, have been abused. Only half. Well, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. You know, we're living in a difficult time where even in religious Judaism, divorce is on the rise. When I was young, we used to be able to say confidently that the divorce rate was 3%. Now it is hovering between 7 and 8%. It's a scary number. It's a scary number. When I grew up, there was not a single kid in either of my 2 classes, because there were parallel classes in Cleveland. There was not a single kid that came from a divorced home in either of the 2 classes. I doubt, I haven't asked my kids, but I doubt that any of them are in a class where there's not at least one kid from a divorced family. Having said that, the numbers out there are abysmal in other religions. And it's not because Judaism has a stigma to divorce, because guess what? Unfortunately, the stigma is pretty much gone, pretty much, not more than anywhere else. Yes, we have the Gemara saying that the Mizbech cries tears, but it's certainly not worse than Catholicism that says divorce is equivalent to adultery. And if you marry a divorcee or you marry someone else after you get divorced, it is as if you committed adultery, which is punishable by death. So believe me, we are not as stringent as that, and yet the cases of divorce within the Christian and Catholic religion, within that is hovering near the national average, which is about 45-50%. In June this year, the church tried to revise that. There was a big study, and they tried to say, oh no, it's much less than people realized. But then they began to narrow it down. No, only if you go to church, and only if you belong to evangelical, and only this and only that, and even at the end of everything, at the end, the most religious is between 20 and 30%. Now, why is this an important number? And it's difficult to speak about it because I know people listening to this, many have gone through divorce or have been privy to it. And for each person, it is a tragedy and it is a difficulty. And you probably know friends, because people who have been divorced, they very often are friends with others, and therefore you sort of live in that world where the divorce is prevalent. But the truth of the matter is, we're living in a much scarier world than we realize. As a matter of fact, there was a study done, it was a Reader's Digest a number of years back, and it discussed the rate of infidelity in marriage, and 75% of all men and 55% of all women admit anonymously to have been unfaithful in their marriage at least once. Many that were still being unfaithful. 75% of all men. It's a train wreck out there. The only reason marriage, the rate of divorce would go down, is people just stop marrying because they've given up. Why do marriages last in Judaism? Well, there are many reasons. We have laws called nida. Nida is a very powerful law if it's observed properly. But there's many others. We work on not speaking Lashon Hara. So if I'm angry at my spouse, I'm not going to go bowling with my friends and badmouth my wife. I'll have to confront her. And then we'll have to have a little showdown, and we'll have to work things out. And I learn Musar. So I learn about being angry and how to control my anger. And we sit down together on Friday night, and it would be very awkward if we're still fighting, so I try to make up then. And at the very least, we have a Yom Kippur where the husband turns to the wife, and the wife turns to the husband, and bashfully say, I hope you're meichel me for all the bad, right? We have times to reconcile, and we work on these things, and we speak about Shalom Bayis, and we go to Shiurim, and Chazaq has promoted Shiurim about Shalom Bayis. It's a big deal to us. So it works. Substance abuse, while it's on the rise, is still much lower than the national average. Children dropping out of school, still much lower. Abuse in the home, and I'll tell you something, and I'm just going to put this in, and then we'll go to number 5. Important to know. You know that every time somebody messes up, and the media touts it, Rabbi caught doing X, Y, and Z, and we're embarrassed and we're ashamed and we're mortified, and we should be. But I just want to point something out, and this point should not be lost on us. If you open a Brooklyn phone book, every other Jew is a rabbi. It's just the reality. You know why? Because getting smicha is just something that you do. In the shul that I grew up in, everyone except for my father had smicha. Everyone had smicha. But there were accountants, and there were lawyers, and there were engineers. But when they stuck around and called, they got smicha. You know why? Because it's nice to be able to have that document and to learn these things, and yeshivas offer it. And then the media, if you have a beard, they'll call you a rabbi because they don't even check if you have a smicha. So you could be a janitor with a beard and suddenly you're a rabbi. Well, of course, if everyone's a rabbi, well, there's no way that out of a whole nation there wouldn't be some bad apples. But you cannot compare when they say rabbis do X, Y, and Z and priests do X, Y, and Z. You don't have this kind of a system where everyone becomes a priest by name but is not an acting priest. You don't have that. Is my point made? I've always wanted to say this point in public because it bothers me how easy it is to throw around the word rabbi simply because everyone's a rabbi. Everyone's a rabbi. So anyone who messes up, a rabbi messed up, and it makes every rabbi look bad. Unfortunately, once in a while you have a rabbi who really, really messes up, and when that's the case, I want to stick my head in the ground, obviously. But you can't compare. It's apples and oranges. Everyone's a rabbi. So anyone who messes up, you splash a rabbi in the news. Okay. So, number 4, proof is in the pudding. We are a nation that, when you look at us, with all of our warts and all of our pimples and all of our flaws, nobody is like us. Nobody is kind like us. Nobody has gemachim like us. Nobody has hatzalah like us. Nobody takes care of somebody who gave birth and for weeks they're getting free suppers from the community, and their baby clothing gets sent to them, and new people are welcomed to the community. I mean, for goodness sakes, last week the Shabbos Project, I have Shabbat.com. I heard through Shabbat.com there were guests who were getting 20 invites apiece. 20 invitations. They couldn't believe the kindness of our community. Nobody is like us. Don't let any blog, don't let any naysayer disqualify how amazing we are. The proof is in the pudding. At the end of the day, we are the Am HaNivcher. And I want to tell you one more thing about this really quick. I had a person said, well, religion creates wars. Where there's religion, there's war. People are always fighting in the name of religion. Judaism, Christianity, Islam. And I say, time out. I don't let people get away with saying things that are nonsense. I always call them on it. I say, excuse me, you said Judaism there. Yeah? Pardon me. When did Judaism, where's Judaism going to war for Judaism? So they said, well, when the Jews came into Israel, when they came from Egypt into Israel, I said, number one, that was not a war for Judaism, right? One tried to convert people, right? That was a war because that was our territory. Hashem gave it to us. But on top of that, are you telling me you have to go back 3,300 years to find an example? I give you an example yesterday, Islam. Actually, I can give you an example 2 hours ago. I give you examples. History is full of bloodshed when it comes to Christianity. We're not going to give them a free pass just because they're acting nice the past little while. No. You don't get you don't get a free pass. I mean, my brother goes through Oman each year where 40,000 people were murdered. They were all standing in line and they were beheaded when they wouldn't convert to Christianity. They're not getting a free pass. When's the last time Jews went to war for Judaism? You're telling me you got to go back 3,300 years? So they don't. No, religion may cause war, but Judaism doesn't. I'm sorry. And don't tell me Gaza. Believe me, Gazans want peace. We would want peace also. We're just defending ourselves. So we live up to our calling. The proof is in the pudding. Number 5. The user experience. People choose, and this is the point that the blogger was making. He was saying people choose Judaism or our religion because it has a beautiful user experience. I come a Friday night and I see the father and mother benching the child, Yivrecha Hashem Yishmerecha, and making Kiddush, Kivanu v'charto v'yisanu, and it's so beautiful, and everyone's dressed to the nines, and they look so beautiful, and the smell of challah, the delicious cholent, and now I am a religious Jew, and the horse and pony show is over, and the fireworks, and the kumbaya, and the traveling Hasidim Havdalah, and it's all gone, and what am I left with? So I feel disillusioned. When I was about tshuva or considering becoming about tshuva, it would look so beautiful, and now it's sort of the same old, same old. So I have two things to say about that. Number one, inspiration comes from you. The user experience is called the user experience because when you do it, you're the user. So to say when I became about tshuva, it looked so beautiful, but now that I'm doing it, I don't see it. Well, start seeing it. You're the user that other people are now looking at. And like anything else, you could have a birthday party with balloons and ice cream cake and party hats, or you could have a 16 candles, kind of a quiet little nothing birthday party. You create the user experience. So start making it a beautiful user experience. Make Shabbos rock. Make it exciting. It's up to you now to carry that torch. Stop blaming the frum community that it's not exciting anymore. You are now that community. You start making it exciting. If you don't know how, go to your local rabbi. You need an inspiration, go to Chazaq. Go to a Shabbaton. Go to Gateways. Go have a good experience. We all need a booster shot. That's okay. I always need a booster shot. But you're the user having that user experience. But number two, it could be that there is validity to the fact that sometimes we, as from Yidden, are guilty of mitzvahs anashim melumada, that we do things by rote. And things do drag us down. And we have our tuitions to pay. And we got Pesach cleaning to clean. And we have the sukkah that has to be taken down. And decorations that got all messed up from the water. And, there's dishes after Shabbos. Yeah, there are times when it is less exciting. There are times when the inspiration is just not there. But you know what? Like anything in life, you get out of an experience what you put into it. And if you made a birthday party, or if you went on a cruise, you'd have to make the money for the cruise. You'd have to go to work to make the money for the cruise. You'd have to make your way there. You'd have to schlep the luggage. You'd have to get settled in your room. You'd have to unpack your bags. You'd have to acclimate. When it would be over, you'd have to repack. There's always tircha. There's always a schlep. But we look at the beauty and the highlight, the user experience. And maybe us, as a frum community, to a recent Baal Tshuva, we should maybe stop taking a Baal Tshuva so much for granted. Stop saying, well, they've already bought into the process, they're already sold, so we don't have to make it so exciting. Because you know what's going to happen? If we stop focusing, then we ourselves are going to lose the excitement. So, while it's true, it's up to them, it's also true that the user experience, we have to try to enhance it. And sometimes, when there are difficulties in the community, the user experience can be downright difficult. And when there are things like agunas, when there are things like when a kid is shepherd, when there are things like this, you're right, it is hard. And that user experience doesn't show our best face. But that's not the entirety of the picture. That's a minute part. Those are things we're working on, like we're always working on things. But as a whole, no one's like us. Look at you guys. Look at you all sitting here. It's a cold night. It's a Sunday night. You have work tomorrow. And you're here listening to Torah. You want to get wisdom. You want to get strength. How wonderful you are. That's Judaism. It's a user experience. It's enhanced. So let me go through the 5 things quickly. These are the reasons people choose Judaism. I want to tell you, this last reason we just said, user experience, even for the Baal Tshuva who's not feeling it so much right now, they could still go back to the other 4 and say, while it's true, my user experience at this moment is not fireworks. Doesn't feel like 4th of July. But let's go back to number 1. Look at the heroes. Look at the role models. Look at the tzaddikim. Look how accessible the tzaddikim are. They're not like the Pope who's guarded in the Vatican that no Catholic ever has the ability to approach him. No, it's tzaddikim, you can go, you can bring your kids to Recham Kanievsky, you can get a bracha. It's the most beautiful, wonderful thing. They're so accessible, they're so humble. They're not driving around in bulletproof limousines. So look at the heroes. Number two, look at our vision. Look at the utopian vision of Judaism. Look at what we aspire towards. Look at what we strive to become. It's beautiful and it's wonderful and it's worth fighting through the tough times because we are genuinely making a difference in this world. Number three, our commitment to truth. Look at us. Which nation is engaged in Torah learning like we are? Which nation allows a disciple, a Talmud, to get up and yell at the Rebbe, "Rebbe, what do you mean?" Or the Rebbe yells back and he yells back, "Chitze gibar shinunim." It says in the beginning, you're like oivim, you're like enemies when you fight in Torah, because truth is so important. You're like your foes, Well, but after you found truth, you become like lovers, because finding truth, no Santa Clauses and no made-up angel Gabriels in caves, no delusions, no sitting under a tree and feeling like you were enlightened. Hardcore, let's get the emes, let's get the truth. And we struggle with it, but there's no mysteries. We fight for the truth until the last dying breath. Number four, the proof is in the pudding. Even with our issues, look at how we function. There really is no nation as unified as us. Sephardi, Ashkenazi, Chassid, Litvak, Tzioni, velvet yarmulke, leather yarmulke, no yarmulke. There's love. There's connection. Our user experience, with all the difficulties, is still superior to anything out there. And I will tell you this as a college rabbi who sits and interviews college students every day. I interview secular students, I meet non-Jewish students. It's a train wreck. It's a train wreck. Everyone's living a sitcom out there. And we're trying our best to live like a mamleches kohanim v'goy kodesh. And then the user experience, the simcha of Shabbos, the longing of Tisha B'Av, the feeling of growth on Tu B'Shvat, the insanity of Purim, the exhale that we take when we've made it to the Seder night and the house is clean and the 3 matzahs and the wine are sitting on the table. Our user experience is second to none. So why does a Baal Tshuva choose? Because for every reason that a person can choose a religion, Judaism comes through being critical of itself, analyzing, but with its heart in the right place and with its eyes directly ahead, trying to grow, trying to become great, and trying to make this world a better place. And that, my friends, is a real compelling argument why the Baal Tshuva movement is here to stay and here to grow and here to transform Yidden, Jewish people, until the coming of Mashiach. Thank you.